Her own son tied her up with a dog's collar, thinking he had broken her forever. But that moment lit the fire that would destroy him. It began in a small kitchen that smelled of old oil and yesterday's coffee. Evening light slid across the cracked tiles. Evelyn stood by the sink, drying a blue plate she had owned since before her hair turned white. She moved slowly, careful not to chip it. She had washed dishes for decades. Houses she cleaned, rooms she rented, the tiny places that kept a life going when money was thin. Mark stomped in first. 34, heavy steps, a beer can already open. Jade followed, arms folded, a cold smile set in her face like glass. The TV in the living room was loud, the laugh track too bright for the stale air of the house. "That plate's still dirty," Mark said, not looking. He flicked his eyes at the sink like he was bored with the sentence he'd just thrown. Evelyn turned the dish in the light. "It was clean. I'll rinse it again," she said, soft. "Old habit, keep the peace." "Lower the flame." The can cracked against the counter. "You never listen," he said. "Never." The words were flat, practiced. A script he liked. Jade leaned in the doorway, tapping a long nail on the wood. "Maybe she needs a lesson," she said, voice sweet and thin. "Dogs learn with a collar." Evelyn set the plate down. Something small inside her tightened, the way a string hums if you pluck it. She didn't answer. She knew the house's weather. You could smell the storm before it broke. Mark walked out to the yard and came back holding an old strip of brown leather. The collar from a dog they once had. The buckle was rusty. The leather was stiff. Evelyn's throat went dry. "Sit," he said, pointing to the wooden chair by the table. She didn't move at first. Her legs felt like they belonged to another body. The chair squeaked when she finally sat. The window over the sink showed the backyard, a narrow bed of red geraniums she had saved from a neighbor's trash. The petals glowed, even in the fading light. Mark looped the collar around her neck. The leather was cold, the kind of cold that burns. He pulled the strap. The buckle clicked. Not tight enough to choke, tight enough to shame. "You're not even a dog," he said calmly, like he was noting the weather. Jade let out a short, pleased laugh and busied herself with the already clean counter, moving a rag from one spot to another, a show for the corner of her mouth. Evelyn's hands found the edge of the seat. She felt the wood grain under her fingers, the tiny ridges carved by years of use. She focused on that, the realness of it. If she kept her breathing slow, the edges of the room didn't spin. The collar scratched. The metal brushed her skin and left a small sting. "Stay there," Mark said, opening the fridge. The hiss of a new can was too loud. He drank while he watched her, like this was a movie he'd paid for. Through the thin wall came a dog's bark from the next yard, an old sound, tired but sharp. Evelyn listened to it rise and fall. She pictured the neighbor's fence, a line of gray blocks with a hairline crack between two bricks. Most days she watered the geraniums near that crack. Today the hose was still curled on the nail outside. Her plants would be thirsty. Jade circled the table once. "Does it hurt?" she asked, a false concern bright as plastic. "It's barely snug." Evelyn said nothing. She didn't bow her head. She stared at the window and let her eyes land on the red flowers, steady as small fires. She thought of all the things she had done with these hands: scrubbed floors, stitched seams, held a fevered child whose hair smelled like sun and dirt. She thought of the notebook under her pillow, the list of dates and words. She thought of her name, plain and honest, Evelyn. It meant wished-for child, her mother had told her once. Funny, the things that come back, minutes stretched. The TV laughed again from the other room. Mark belched. Jade yawned. The house made its old sounds. A pipe ticking, a fridge motor starting up, the soft clack of a loose tile underfoot when someone shifted weight. Then, from the yard, a second sound. Footsteps by the fence. A pause. The dog's bark turned urgent like a warning. Mark glanced toward the window and lowered the TV with the remote. Jade ran 2 fingers over the countertop and stilled them, listening. "Everything okay in there?" A man's voice called from outside, steady, careful, not loud. The neighbor, Mr. Becker, Mark's jaw worked. "Fine," he called back, forcing a smile into his voice. "Just moving furniture." Evelyn's heart knocked once, hard. Not from fear. From something else. Something clean and bright that started small in her chest and spread like heat to her fingers. She did not try to talk. She did not struggle. She breathed in, slow and even. She memorized the feel of the wood, the scratch of the leather, the exact words he had said. She placed them on an invisible page inside her mind, the way she had done for months, line after line after line. Mark finished his drink and tossed the can toward the trash. It missed, skittered across the tile, and rolled to a stop at her feet. He smirked, pleased with the noise it made. "Think about respect," he said. "Stay there until you learn it." Evelyn lifted her eyes to the window again. The geraniums held their color as the sun slid down. Out of sight, on the other side of the wall, a phone camera lens might have been set to the crack between the bricks. A red dot might have glowed. 30 seconds can hold a lifetime, the collar pressed. The room stayed small, but the spark inside her did not go out. It brightened, quiet and steady, like a pilot light catching the line. Morning starts in the yard, where the sun comes slow and thin over the block wall. Evelyn slips outside before the TV turns loud, before the house remembers to be unkind. The cement is cool under her sandals. The hose hangs from a nail she tapped in herself, bent a little, still working. She opens the spigot just enough to make a soft thread of water and guides it from pot to pot. The geraniums are her stubborn choir, red faces that keep singing on very little. She knows each one by the nick in its clay, by the tilt of its stem. The largest has 5 blooms and a split rim wrapped with twine. A smaller one still wears the bite marks of a dry month. She pinches the yellow from a leaf and tucks it in her apron pocket. A habit from years of saving what can be saved. "Water costs money," Jade had said last week. Standing in the kitchen window with a coffee she did not brew. Use less. Evelyn learned to measure the hose with time, not sight. One slow count to 5 per pot, 7 for the deepest. On really hot days she pushes to 8 and pays for it later with a speech about bills. She answers those with silence. Sometimes silence is the only tool left that doesn't get taken. From inside, a plate clatters. On purpose. By the sound. And Mark mutters something about respect. The word has lost its meaning in his mouth, like a coin rubbed smooth. Evelyn keeps watering. The steady ribbon of water soaks the soil and darkens it to a clean brown. The scent rises, damp and good. At the far end, a cracked plastic tub holds a mint cutting she rescued from the alley. The plant tries hard. sends up thin green hands. She gives it 2 extra heartbeats of water and whispers, "There you go. A small mercy no one can invoice." On a thin shelf by the back door sits a green notebook with a rubber band around it. When the yard is done, when her hands have steadied, she opens it at the kitchen table and writes the date in neat block letters. She records what happened last night, what was said, who was in the room, where she stood, where he stood. She writes the time he tightened the collar, how long it stayed, what the skin looked like this morning. Red line 3-4 around. Stings when I swallow. Her handwriting is patient and square, the kind that once labeled school lunches, rent envelopes, report cards she signed without anyone asking. The notebook was an accident at first. A church flyer with a blank back and a pencil that still had bite marks. Now it is system. She logs small things too. The fork hidden, coffee poured out, the way Jade set 2 plates and told Evelyn, "You can eat in the kitchen." She writes these like receipts. Not for revenge, for memory. When people doubt you, you must not doubt yourself. Paper helps. Through the wall, the neighbor's dog barks twice, then quiets. A radio plays a morning show next door. The host laughs at his own joke. Life goes on right against theirs, thin as that mortar crack. Mr. Becker coughs and moves a chair. Evelyn hears him the way you learn to hear rain before it comes. She closes the notebook and slides it under the bread tin. A second copy, short lines on torn notes, lives tucked in the pocket of her apron. She will copy them clean later. She has always made 2 of the important things: extra keys, extra potatoes for soup, extra minutes when a recipe says exactly 20. Insurance you can hold. The house begins to stir. Mark wants eggs. The pan is where it always is. He shouts like it isn't. Evelyn sets water for tea and keeps her eyes on the kettle. Watching something honest heat up feels like strength. She lays a clean towel on the counter, smooths the edge with her palm. Her hands remember gentleness even where it isn't returned. Jade drifts in and stops at the sink. "You left dirt again," she says, pointing at a line of potting soil so thin it could be a shadow. "I'll wipe it," Evelyn answers, and does. One motion, no noise. Mark appears, shirt wrinkled, hair not yet decided. He bumps the chair as he passes, a small push to see if small pushes still work. Evelyn doesn't move. The chair legs squeak, then settle. He opens the fridge and counts the beers without touching them. He likes to know what can be taken later. When the kettle whispers, Evelyn turns off the flame. She pours her cup, then carries it back to the yard while the house argues with itself. Outside, the light is stronger now. She sits on a plastic chair under the peach tree and drinks while the geraniums glow. A gull crosses the square of sky between roofs and is gone. She reaches into her apron and takes out a stub of pencil. On the back of a grocery receipt, she writes 3 things. Caller, words, witness? The question mark is new. It feels like a door left on the latch. In the doorway, Jade's voice needles the air. Inside, a pan hits the metal grate a little too hard. The world nudges, the way it always does. Evelyn turns the receipt over and writes the date again, slower, as if carving it. She presses the paper flat with her palm, then tucks it back into the pocket where the soft wood of the pencil warms against her skin. Every line she writes is small, quiet work, like watering. You don't see change at once, but roots take hold. Proof grows leaves. And one day, when someone finally asks, the garden will be ready to speak. Every line in the notebook is a seed. Mr. Becker was sanding a picture frame when the sound cut through the morning. Sharp words, a chair scrape, then a woman's breath stopping for a beat too long. He set the sandpaper down. He knew the noises houses make. Pipes clink, hinges sigh, radios laugh. This wasn't any of those. This sounded like a board bending past what it should carry. He stepped out to his small yard. The sun was still low, light sliding along the tops of the cinder blocks. His old dog, Daisy, lifted her head and gave 2 barks, the kind she saved for trouble. "Easy," he said, scratching the white patch behind her ear. But his eyes were already on the line where his wall met theirs. There was a crack between 2 blocks, no wider than a pencil. It had been there for years, a slow shift after a wet winter. Most days he ignored it. Today it felt like a door he hadn't known he might need. He heard a man's voice through it, flat, too calm. "You're not even a dog." Then a can rolled across tile and hit something hollow. Mr. Becker's hands went cold. He had heard plenty on this street. People fight, people make up. But he hadn't heard that. He pulled his phone from his pocket. His granddaughter had made him practice. "Camera, Grandpa, not photo. Press the red circle to record." He opened the app, held the screen to the crack, and tried to steady his breathing. The picture jittered. The view was thin. A slice of a kitchen table, a patch of linoleum, a shadow. But the sound was clean. It carried the words the way wood carries a nail, clear, straight, undeniable. He recorded. 30 seconds. He watched a shadow move and heard the scrape of leather against wood. He heard a woman's voice not speaking, just that held breath again, the sound of staying still to survive. He whispered, "It's okay," and knew she couldn't hear him. The timer on the screen ticked past 25. He stopped and pulled the phone back. His hands shook, the way they did the first time he stood on a high roof and looked down without a harness. Daisy pressed her head against his leg. He rested his palm on her neck and felt her warmth, steady and good. He wanted to go bang on the gate, to climb the wall, to shout. He knew better. He had been a carpenter for 40 years. He knew about structure. If you pull the wrong piece at the wrong time, the whole frame collapses on you and anyone standing nearby. He needed to add support, not start a fall. He scrolled to the contact his granddaughter had added under important. Ross, Maltese, retired. They had fixed porches together when they were young. Ross had a way of walking into a mess and coming out with names, dates, and a plan. Mr. Becker tapped call. "Becker, you okay?" Ross's voice still had that steady cop weight. "I've got something bad next door," Mr. Becker said, keeping his voice low. "I think he tied her. He said," he swallowed. "He said she's not even a dog." I recorded 30 seconds through the crack. "You can hear it." "Don't confront," Ross said at once. "Send me the clip. I'm 5 minutes out. We'll do this clean." Mr. Becker fumbled with the share button, cursed softly at his thick fingers, then saw the little arrow fly. Sent. He waited by the wall, phone in his palm like a hot stone. His eyes stung. He wasn't the crying sort, but some things make a man feel like a nail. Small, but needed, and you hope you're hit true. The yard on the other side went quiet. Then a TV turned up and turned down again. He heard the man call, "We're fine, moving furniture." Mr. Becker stepped back from the wall so his shadow wouldn't show through the crack. He looked at Daisy. "We are not moving furniture," he said, and Daisy's tail thumped once, as if she agreed. His phone buzzed. A text from Ross. "Got it. Clear audio. Don't delete. I'm here." A moment later, a car door closed out front. Mr. Becker stayed in his yard. He knew his place, witness, not hero. Heroes run at fires. Witnesses keep the tape rolling and hand it to the right hands. He opened the clip and watched the blue bar crawl across the bottom. He wanted to throw up and he wanted to shout, and he wanted to be 20 years younger so he could take the door off its hinges. Instead, he did the small right things. He saved the file twice. He texted his granddaughter, "Love you. Your camera lessons matter." Then he slipped the phone into his shirt pocket and waited for Ross's knock. From the geranium bed on the other side came a sound like a hose being lifted, imagined or real, he couldn't tell. He pictured the old woman who watered those red faces every morning, the careful hands, the way she nodded when he said hello. He pictured her sitting up straight someday, not because she had to, but because no one could push her down again. He touched the crack in the wall with one fingertip. It felt like nothing. It held everything. 30 seconds is enough to change a life. The phone rang just after 7, a clean sound in a quiet house. Evelyn froze, listening. Mark's boots weren't in the hall. Jade's door was closed, no music yet. The screen showed a number she didn't know. "Hello?" Her voice was small from sleep and the ache in her throat. "Mrs. Evelyn?" "It's Becker. Next door." His voice was gentle, careful. "They're out. Could you come over a minute? I have something you should see." Her first answer was no, in her chest. No because trouble spreads. No because secrets bite. But he added, "Please, it's important. I'll keep it short." And she heard a steadiness that felt like a hand held out. She slipped on her sandals and crossed the narrow yard. The light was pale. Her geraniums lifted their red faces as she passed, as if to say go. Mr. Becker opened his back door before she could knock. His kitchen was neat in an old way, mismatched cups, a radio low, the clean smell of wood and coffee. "Sit," he said, pulling out a chair with the ease of a host. "Cinnamon?" He held up a small shaker. She nodded. He poured coffee, added a pinch, and pushed the cup across the table. It warmed her fingers. He set his phone between them and folded his hands. "I recorded something yesterday," he said. "I wish I'd never needed to. But I did, and I think you need to see it. If you want to stop at any time, say so." He tapped the screen. The video window opened. The image was thin, just a sliver of floor and table, a shadow, but the sound filled the small room. Mark's voice flat as a closed door. "You're not even a dog." A scrape. A can rolling. Silence where there should have been words. Evelyn's hand went to her neck, to the tender line that still stung. She looked at the screen and then at the table, and then at her cup. She waited for the old swirl of shame to rise. It didn't. Something else did. Relief, sharp enough to make her eyes water. "It's not in your head," Becker said quietly. "It happened. I heard it. The phone caught it." She nodded once, twice. She didn't cry, not yet. "Thank you," she said, and meant it with both hands. "I thought maybe I was making it bigger than it was." "You weren't," he said. "And you don't have to carry it alone." He reached into his pocket and slid a small card across the table. Ross, Latif retired, and a number. Then another. Amelia Chen, Legal Aid, Senior Protection Unit. I called Ross, Becker went on. He's retired, but he knows the steps. He says there are laws that protect you. Ms. Chen helps people our age who get hurt by family. He watched her face to see if the word hurt would push her away. It didn't. Evelyn wrapped her fingers around the cards. I don't have money for lawyers, she said, the old wall rising on reflex. Legal aid doesn't charge, Becker said. It's what they do. If you want, I'll sit with you while you call. Or Ross can come. Or both. No one will rush you. The radio murmured a weather report. The world would be warm today, with a breeze in the afternoon. Evelyn stared at the steam from her cup, at how it curled and disappeared. She thought of her notebook under the bread tin. She thought of the way Mark's voice had sounded like a judge handing down a sentence. She thought of the crack in the wall and the little red dot that must have blinked. Will this make him angrier? She asked, barely above a whisper. Maybe, Becker said, honest. But the right way gives you protection, too. Paper he has to respect. People who will stand with you. Ross says step 1 is safety. Step 2 is proof. You already have the second. Safety. Proof. Simple words like nails and boards. She could build with those. She looked up. Can we call Ms. Chen now? Becker smiled, lines deepening at the corners of his eyes. We can. He tapped the number and set the phone to speaker. Legal aid, senior protection, this is Amelia. A clear voice, young but steady. Ms. Chen, my name is Evelyn, she said, surprising herself with how steady she sounded back. I think I need help. Amelia asked gentle questions. Are you safe right now? Is he in the house? Do you have any marks? Do you have anyone with you? Evelyn answered, Yes, no, yes, my neighbor. Amelia explained next steps with calm care. Emergency protective order, medical photos, a sworn statement, a time to meet that afternoon at the community center around the corner. We take elder abuse very seriously, Amelia said. You are not alone. Evelyn pressed the phone close. I have a notebook, she said. Dates, words, times. That's excellent, Amelia said, meaning it. Bring it. It will help the judge see the pattern. When the call ended, Becker poured a little more coffee. They didn't speak for a full minute. They didn't need to. The air felt different, lighter by an inch. Evelyn stood. I should go back before they return. She tucked the cards into her apron and looked toward the fence. Thank you for seeing me, she said, and the words sounded larger than they were. Today, Becker said, we start fixing the frame. She stepped into the yard. The sun had climbed a little. The plants were bright. In her pocket, the cards pressed against her palm like small tools, simple, solid, ready. Help is real if she dares to take it. The community center smelled like floor cleaner and paper. Posters on the wall said things like, You have rights, and we listen. Amelia met them at the door with a clipboard and water cups. We'll go step by step, she said. No rush, no drama, just the record. Evelyn sat at a round table with Mr. Becker on one side and Ross on the other. The room had a humming copier and a window that let in good light. Amelia opened a manila folder and made neat stacks. Protective order petition, victim statement, witness statements, evidence log. She wrote the date at the top of each in small, careful numbers and slid a pen to Evelyn. Tell it in plain words, Amelia said. What happened? Where? When? Exact sentences if you remember them. Evelyn did. She wrote block letters like she had on lunch sacks and rent envelopes years ago. She wrote slowly so she wouldn't hurry past herself. Under what did he say? She printed, "You're not even a dog." Under how long? She wrote, "About 40 minutes, neck sore." Hard to swallow. Ross opened his small notebook. "I'll collect neighbors," he said. Mrs. Thompson on the corner heard yelling most weekends. The kid at the store saw food thrown. Night shift driver saw a push in the yard. "We'll get signatures." Amelia nodded. "We'll need sworn statements. We can notarize here this afternoon." They walked next door to the clinic for the medical part. Dr. Morales was brisk and kind. He never made the mark on her neck feel like a stain. He measured the redness with a paper ruler and said the words slowly so Amelia could write them. Linear erythema around 3/4 circumference. Tender to palpation. Pattern consistent with a strap or collar. He took photos with a clinic phone that stamped the time in the corner. 2 angles, he said. Wide and close. He printed one set and saved the originals to an encrypted drive. Amelia copied the file names onto the evidence log and checked the boxes. Retained, duplicated, backed up. Back at the table, Evelyn slid the green notebook from her apron and set it down like something living. Dates, times, what they said, she said. Amelia's eyes softened. "This is gold," she said, and she meant it. Pattern shows intent. She looped the rubber band off, turned the pages, and breathed out at the steady handwriting. May 12th. Fork hidden. June set, eat standing. Sink full on purpose. June 18th, water threat. Plumber lie. July 3rd, collar, mark red. Dizzy. We'll copy every page, Amelia said. She fed the book gently into the scanner. The light bar went across, slow and even, like a think aloud breath. She made 2 sets, one for court, one for backup. She put the originals back under Evelyn's palm. "You keep this with you," she said. "Always." Mr. Becker placed his phone on the table. "Video," he said simply. He had already saved it twice and emailed a copy to Amelia with the subject line, "Evidence, audio clear." She plugged her laptop in, downloaded the file, and wrote the hash code on the log. "Chain of custody matters," she said. Becker signed where she pointed. His hand didn't shake. Ross came back with Mrs. Thompson in a Sunday dress and reading glasses on a chain. "I'll say what I heard," she said, chin lifted. "It was cruel," she signed. Tyler from the store came on his break, still in his apron, and wrote what he'd seen. Food dumped, words like trash. The night shift driver wrote about the shove by the wall and the way the old woman held her back after. Amelia notarized each line with a neat stamp and a blue pen flourish. She added them to the tab marked Witness. "Safety plan," Amelia said. "Today, before service." They made a list. Code word with Mr. Becker, Peaches, to mean call 911. Spare bag with meds at Becker's house. Phone always charged. Door chain installed before nightfall. Ross will be there when the order is served. "No scenes," Ross said. "We let the paper do the talking." Amelia reviewed the petition aloud so nothing could be twisted later. Temporary sole occupancy to Evelyn, 200-yard no contact for Mark. No third-party contact, surrender of any household keys, no control over mail or money. This keeps you in the home and him out, she said. We file now. Hearing next. Today we get the emergency order signed. They made copies of everything. Amelia labeled each tab with a calm hand. Petition, medical, video, notebook, witness, service. She slid the stack into a blue folder and wrote Evelyn H. Knoll Primary on the spine. She gave Evelyn a smaller packet with just what she'd need to show any officer. The petition, the temporary order when it came back, the clinic note, and Amelia's card clipped on top. Evelyn ran her fingers along the edges of the papers. They were straight and cool. She felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, order. Not the order someone else used to control her, but the kind that makes a thing stand up, the way good legs make a table strong. Amelia placed a pen under Evelyn's hand. Last signature for today, she said. Evelyn signed her name. Not shaky, not small. The click of the pen cap sounded like a latch. Outside, the copier hummed. Inside, the folder's tabs lined up like fence posts in a row. Fear was still there, but it had to share the room now, with dates, with stamps, with names, with the clean weight of paper. Justice doesn't shout first. It measures, it writes, it backs up. Justice begins with paperwork. By late afternoon, the house had its usual heat. Stale air, a TV laugh track 2 rooms away, the faint tang of old grease. Evelyn moved quiet, putting cups upside down on the towel to dry. Her small packet from the community center, papers, clinic note, Amelia's card, lay flat under the bread tin where the notebook used to hide. The phone was charged. The kettle sat ready. She could hear Mr. Becker's radio through the fence, a weatherman saying tomorrow would be clear. The front door opened hard. Mark's boots came first, fast. Jade's steps clicked behind, lighter, sharper. He didn't call hello. He went straight to the kitchen doorway and filled it, one hand high on the frame like a gate that wouldn't swing. Where'd you go today? He asked. No hello, no smile. The words were level, but his jaw moved like he was chewing stone. Evelyn turned a cup. Store, she said. True enough, she had stopped for tea bags on the way back. What store? He stepped in, close enough for his breath to push at the air. You left at 8. It's 4. Evelyn placed the cup with the others. I walked. Sat in the park a while. Also true. She had rested on a bench, her folder in a cloth bag with apples on it. Jade drifted to the sink without touching a thing. Mrs. Thompson says you were at Becker's this morning, she said lightly, like she was commenting on weather. You two have a lot to talk about lately? Evelyn folded the towel, slow and square. Neighbors talk, she said. Mark leaned in until his shadow crossed the counter. You don't tell strangers our business, he said. You don't tell anyone anything without asking me first. You understand? Evelyn felt the old pull. Say sorry, make it smaller, choose peace. She let the feeling pass through her like wind through a screen and kept folding until the towel was a neat brick under her palm. She placed it by the sink and turned to face him. I speak to whom I choose, she said. The sentence was simple and it stayed in the air like a bell that keeps ringing after you stop seeing the rope. Mark blinked. Jade stopped the little tap of her nails. What did you say? Mark's voice had a new edge, thin and sharp. I speak to whom I choose, she repeated. No louder, no softer. They stood that way for a count of 4. The fridge motor kicked on. Somewhere in the neighborhood a kid laughed, Then a car door closed. Jade found her smile again and set it on her face, but it didn't reach her eyes. Mark took a half step closer, chest out, neck stiff. "You think you can disrespect me in my house?" Evelyn looked past him for a moment to the square of window over the sink. The geraniums were bright against the wall, red steady spots in late light. She let that color settle in her and then brought her eyes back to his. "This is my home," she said. "I keep it. I clean it. I live here. I will talk to neighbors. I will sit in the park. I will buy tea. I will answer when someone asks me if I'm all right." He laughed once, a small bark with no humor in it. "You'll answer me." She didn't move. "I already did." He reached toward the counter, knocked one cup on its side, watched it roll and clatter to a stop. "You're not funny," he said, almost conversational. "No," Evelyn said. "I'm finished." Jade's voice slid in, soft and needling. "Old people get confused, Mark. She doesn't mean it." Evelyn let the words pass. She did not argue. She did not explain. She did not fill the room. She stood inside her sentence and let it hold. Mark's hand went to the drawer where the forks were. He opened it hard, then closed it harder. The sound cracked and died. He wanted her to flinch. She didn't. He wanted noise to be power. She gave him quiet. He tried another door, a different kind of push. "Where's your little garden hose?" he asked. "Water's expensive." "In the yard," she said. He waited for the apology that used to come. None came. The clock over the stove ticked 7 times. He looked at it as if the sound had betrayed him. "What are you writing all the time?" he asked suddenly. His eyes flicked to the bread tin. "Lists," she said. "Groceries. Things to fix. People to thank." He smirked, but his hand stayed off the tin. Something in the way she answered, steady, not secret, made the distance feel heavier than his lean. He stepped back first. "Eat in your room," he said, grasping at an old rule. "We're watching TV. I'll eat at the table," she said. "Later." He opened his mouth to argue, then shut it. The TV in the other room laughed too loud. Jade touched his wrist, a signal to save face elsewhere. They left the doorway the way they came, together, trying not to look like they had been turned. Evelyn set the cup upright and righted the small stack with one hand. She put the kettle on and watched the first faint threads of steam. She could feel her heart in her ribs, but its beat was clean, not wild. She breathed with it. In, out, in. The phone on the counter buzzed, a single vibration, the kind Mr. Becker had set for a check-in. She turned it over, saw one word from him. "Peaches?" She typed back, "All good." "Then thank you." She poured hot water over the tea and carried her cup to the back step. Outside, the air was cooler. On the other side of the wall, Becker's radio played an old love song at low volume. The geraniums flared in the last of the light. She didn't celebrate. She didn't mourn. She sat and sipped and let the calm come back to where it belonged. Inside, the TV laughed. Outside, the evening settled. He had used silence to shrink her for years. Now she used silence to draw the line. Silence was his weapon. Now it's hers. By 9 the next morning, the folder sat on Evelyn's lap like a small, steady animal. Amelia drove. Mr. Becker rode in back with Ross, who kept his old notebook open on his knee. The courthouse rose plain and heavy at the end of the block. Inside, the hallway smelled like wax and copy toner. A clock clicked once every second. Patient. "We'll do the emergency petition ex parte," Amelia said softly, guiding them to a window marked clerk. "He won't be here. You'll answer a few questions. I'll do the rest." The clerk took the stack, checked the tabs, and slid a rubber stamp across the top page. Thunk. A red date, a case number. Paper moved to another tray. A bailiff nodded them into a small hearing room. 4 chairs, 1 flag, a seal on the wall. The judge entered without drama, a calm man with gray at his temples and a pen already uncapped. "Ms. Chen," he said, "you have an emergency?" Amelia stood. "Yes, Your Honor. Petitioner is Ms. Evelyn Hart, age 76. We're seeking a temporary protective order and exclusive occupancy. We have medical documentation, contemporaneous notes, witness statements, and a short video with clear audio." The judge looked to Evelyn. "Ma'am, I'll ask a few questions," he said. "Take your time." Evelyn stood. Her hands did not shake. "He put a dog collar on me," she said. "He said I wasn't even a dog. It stayed about 40 minutes. My neck is marked. I have it written. There are witnesses." Amelia plugged in the laptop and played 30 seconds. The room went very quiet. The words landed the way nails land when they're struck true. The judge glanced at the clinic note. "Dr. Morales?" He read, then nodded. "Linear erythema, consistent with strap." He thumbed the notebook copies, the square handwriting steady from page to page. "Pattern consistent over months," he said. He didn't look surprised. He looked finished with the decision he had already made. "Any firearms in the home?" he asked. "No," Evelyn said. "Keys?" he asked. "He has a set," she said. "So does his wife." The judge uncapped his pen. "Temporary order granted," he said. "Exclusive occupancy to Ms. Hart. Respondent to remain 200 yards away. No contact, no phone, text, email, or through others. Surrender of all keys. One-time civil standby permitted for clothing with law enforcement. No interference with mail or finances. Return hearing in 14 days. He signed in blue. The clerk embossed a seal, press, click, lift, and handed Amelia 3 certified copies. "Take 1 for service, 1 for her, 1 for the door," the clerk said, as if she'd said it 1,000 times. Outside in the hallway light, Amelia spread the copies like cards and pointed. "This is the one you show any officer," she told Evelyn. "Keep it on you. If he violates, call 911. Use the word order. That matters." Ross had already texted a number. A deputy met them downstairs. Ortiz, calm eyes, neat uniform. "I'll serve him now," he said. "Anyone need me present for a lock change later?" "Please," Mr. Becker said. "We've got a chain ready." They followed Deputy Ortiz back to the street. He took a photo of the order with his phone, logged the case number, and wrote his own initials under "to be served." "If he's home, I'll hand it," he said. "If not, I'll post and mail. Either way, it's active now." Back at the house, Evelyn stood on the porch while Ortiz knocked. Mark opened the door 3 inches, eyes skittering. The deputy's voice stayed level. "Stephen Hart? You've been named respondent in a protective order," he said. He held the paper where it couldn't be missed. "This is now in effect. Step outside to receive service." Mark tried a smile that didn't know how to live on his face. "What is this?" "It's the law," Ortiz said. "Read." Then hand over any keys to this address. Jade appeared behind him and went still. The deputy waited. The neighborhood air held its breath. Mark opened the door the rest of the way, took the paper, and scanned until his finger found 200 yards. His jaw clicked. He fished a keyring from his pocket and slipped off 2 dull brass shapes. They clinked into Ortiz's palm. "No contact," the deputy repeated. "No approach. If you need clothing, we'll arrange a standby. Do not test this order." Ross stood on the walk, arms quiet at his sides, a witness without a badge who still carried weight. Mr. Becker said nothing. He didn't need to. Amelia nodded once to Ortiz, and he nodded back. Service complete. Inside, the house felt new by an inch and a half. Mr. Becker set a small chain lock on the inside of the door while Ortiz watched. 2 screws snug, click. The chain slid into its cradle with a sound like a zipper closing against weather. Amelia taped 1 certified copy on the inside of the door at eye level. "So any officer can see it at once," she said. She handed the second to Evelyn and slipped the third into the blue folder under service. "We'll file proof this afternoon." Evelyn took her copy and pressed the edge with her thumb. Her breath came in even lines. She set the paper on the table, next to a cup and a spoon, and a life that would now be guarded by more than hope. The phone buzzed on the counter. A single word from Mr. Becker lit the screen. "Peaches?" She answered, "Served." Paper doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't slam doors. It sits in your hand and changes the shape of what comes next. Paper can be stronger than fists. They met on the courthouse steps before 10, Amelia with the blue folder, Mr. Becker in his pressed work shirt, Ross with his small notebook, and Evelyn in a clean blouse whose collar didn't rub the tender line on her neck. The flag outside snapped once in a light wind. "Plain words," Amelia reminded. "Answer what's asked. If you don't know, say so." The courtroom was small, quiet, and too bright. Wooden benches, a seal on the wall, a clock that clicked without hurrying anyone. On the left, Mark sat beside a tired-looking lawyer in a brown suit. Jade kept her eyes on the floor. On the right, neighbors filled a row. Mrs. Thompson in her Sunday dress. Tyler in his store apron folded neat in his lap. The night shift driver with oil under his nails. Mr. Becker squeezed Evelyn's hand once and let go. "All rise." The judge entered, gray at the temples, files in a neat stack. He listened to a calendar of names, then looked up. "Hart, return on protective order." Amelia stood. "Petitioner is Ms. Evelyn Hart, age 76, she said. "We seek to continue and expand the order. Exclusive possession, no contact, keys surrendered, and relief from interference with mail and finances. We have medical documentation, contemporaneous notes, witness statements, and a short recording with clear audio." The judge nodded to Evelyn. "Ma'am, I'll need your testimony. Speak into the microphone." Evelyn stood. The wood of the witness stand was smooth under her fingers. She told it in plain words. "He put a dog collar on me," she said. "Said I wasn't even a dog. About 40 minutes. My neck was marked. I wrote it down that night." Her voice didn't shake. It just carried. Amelia set the clinic photos on the evidence tray. The judge glanced. A paper ruler against bruised skin, the timestamp clean in the corner. "Dr. Morales," he read aloud. "Linear erythema consistent with strap." He tapped the copies of Evelyn's green notebook, square handwriting in steady rows. "These are yours?" "Yes," Evelyn said. "Dates, words, times?" "Very good," he said. Not kindly, not unkindly, just finished. Amelia plugged in her laptop. The screen stayed dark, but the speakers filled the room. Mark's voice arrived flat and cold. "You're not even a dog." A can rolled. A chair leg scraped. The room went still enough to hear a pencil set down somewhere in the back. The judge let the silence sit a beat after the clip ended. Then he looked at Mark. "Do you dispute that's your voice?" Mark's lawyer leaned to the microphone. "Your Honor, we don't contest the audio, but we do contend context. My client lost his temper briefly while supporting his mother." The judge raised a hand. "Counsel, I've heard enough context in 30 years to know abuse when it's in front of me." He turned to the neighbor row. "Witnesses?" Mrs. Thompson stood, small but certain. "Most weekends, yelling. I heard her cry." Tyler told his piece, food dumped on the floor. The driver added the push in the yard and the way she held her back after. Mr. Becker identified the recording and signed the chain of custody line. Ross didn't testify. He didn't need to. Jade was called. She walked like the floor might tip. "Did you try to help Ms. Hart that day?" Amelia asked. "No," Jade said to the rail. Her voice was quiet and true in the worst way. Amelia returned to counsel table and rested her palm on the blue folder. "We're asking for continued protection, exclusive possession, no contact, and a stay-away that includes respondent's spouse. We also ask the court to bar interference with mail and bank accounts and to refer the matter for criminal review under elder abuse statutes." The judge capped his pen, then uncapped it, an old habit before a ruling. "Protective order continued and expanded for 3 years, he said, eyes on the file, voice clear. Exclusive possession to Ms. Hart. Respondent and spouse to remain 200 yards away. No contact, direct or indirect. Surrender any duplicate keys, garage openers, codes. No interference with petitioner's mail, pension, or banking. One-time civil standby permitted for clothing within 48 hours, scheduled through the sheriff. Violation will result in immediate arrest. Clerk will forward this record to the district attorney for review." He signed in blue. The clerk embossed the seal, press, click, lift, and handed down certified copies like small shields. Mark half stood, then sat again when the bailiff shifted. His lawyer whispered fast and low. Jade wiped at her cheek, not for sorrow, more like a smear she couldn't get off. Evelyn didn't look at them. She looked at the judge because he had looked at her and believed her. Her breath came in even lines. She slid one certified copy into her bag next to the clinic note and her tea receipts and the pencil she used to make straight lists. "Ms. Hart," the judge said, "softer now. If there is a violation, call 911 and show the order. Use the word violation. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor," she said. "All rise." The gavel touched wood once, not loud. Outside, on the steps, the late morning had widened. People started talking in normal voices again, about parking meters, about lunch, about a game that night. Amelia put a hand on Evelyn's shoulder. "You did exactly what you needed," she said. Mr. Becker nodded. Ross closed his notebook like something finished and ready to be filed. Evelyn looked up at the flag and then at the sky beyond it. The day was the same color as before she walked in. She was not. She stood straighter, not because someone made her, but because no one could push her down. 30 years on the bench, and he'd seen enough. So had she. The order gave them 2 days. Not a story, not a debate. 48 hours. A deputy wrote the time on a form and clipped it to a board. "Civil standby when you move your clothing," he said. "No scenes." The words were simple, like instructions on a box. Open here, lift there, do not return. Morning 1. Evelyn set a chair under the peach tree and waited for the house to breathe. Mr. Becker stood in his yard with a mug and a quiet nod. Ross arrived in a clean white shirt and leaned on the fence like a guard who didn't need a badge. The copy of the order was taped at eye level by the door. The chain lock clicked once when she opened for the deputy. The sound carried. Mark came in hot and then stopped cold at the uniform. He read the paper again, even though the words had not changed. Jade hovered behind him with a roll of black trash bags and a face that had learned to arrange itself. The deputy's voice stayed level. "You can take clothing and personal items. No tools, no appliances, no mail. I'm here to keep the peace." They moved without their old volume. Bags swallowed shirts. A box took cups. The TV went into a blanket with the last of the care they had left. Drawers thudded open and shut. Hangers clacked. Somewhere a zipper worked and failed and worked again. Neighbors found reasons to be outside. Mrs. Thompson watered the same square of sidewalk for a long time. Tyler walked by on his way to work and lifted 2 fingers in a small salute toward the peach tree. People didn't stare exactly. They held the space in a way that said, "We saw. We still see." Mark passed the kitchen and paused at the table. His hand hovered over the bread tin where the notebook used to hide. He put his hand down, then pulled it back like the metal was hot. The deputy cleared his throat. "Keep moving, sir." Mark moved. Jade opened the bathroom cabinet and reached for a bottle that wasn't hers. Ross said, "Personal items only," and pointed with 2 fingers, open-handed, the way officers point when they don't want to fight, just the truth. She left the bottle and took her hairbrush. Little things told on them, even now. At noon, the deputy stepped outside to log the hour and radio dispatch. Evelyn poured water into a glass and set it on the porch table for him. He nodded a thanks that felt like a small repair. Inside, Mark dragged a suitcase across the tile and scuffed the grout he'd never scrubbed. The sound was ugly and short. He looked around one last time at walls he hadn't painted and a window he hadn't fixed. The room did not look back. By evening, Stacks waited by the door. 4 black bags, 2 grocery boxes, a fan, a lamp with no shade. A cab pulled up with a rattle. The driver kept the meter running and his eyes forward. The deputy stood to the side, hands folded, present like a line drawn on paper. Thin, decisive, real. Jade went first with the lamp and a bag. She didn't glance at Evelyn. Mark came after, hugging the TV like a child he had never learned to hold. At the threshold he paused, mouth opening to form a word that did not arrive. "Sorry? Threat?" Nothing came. He stepped into the evening and the cab swallowed him. The deputy turned to Evelyn. "Anything else they need to collect within the 48, they do it with us. If they come alone, call." He tapped the order on the door with a knuckle. "This speaks for you," Evelyn nodded. Her hands were steady on the frame. The house felt an inch larger than another. In the yard, the light thinned to honey. Mr. Becker raised his mug once more. Ross closed his notebook. When the cab pulled away, the air shifted. Not louder, cleaner. The deputy handed Evelyn a small plastic bag with 2 dull brass shapes and a chipped remote. "Recovered during service," he said. "Spare keys. Garage opener." She took them. The metal was cool and exact. She set the opener on the table, then opened her palm and looked at the keys a long second before closing her hand. Keys change hands, so does air. News doesn't walk, it rides. By the weekend, a local station ran 10 seconds of audio from Mr. Becker's recording. No faces, names blurred. Paired with a segment about elder protection orders. With Amelia's permission, the story ended with a number to call for help. People heard the line anyway. "You're not even a dog." It traveled farther than anyone planned. Mark learned what travel feels like when doors don't open. He called 3 foremen. 2 didn't pick up. The 3rd said, "Saw the piece. We can't have that on site." Mark argued about context. The man hung up. He tried day labor at the yard by the tracks. A supervisor read his name on the clipboard, glanced at his phone, and slid the list back without meeting his eyes. "We're full." Mark walked away slower than he had come. He bought a cheap new number and tried to call Evelyn. The order had trained everyone's ears. No contact means no contact. He let it ring once and hung up, sweating in a parking lot. He texted a friend, "Tell her I just want to talk." And the friend replied with a screenshot of the order and 3 words, "Don't text me." Ross's quiet shadow fell longer than a badge. The motel on the highway took cash. The room smelled like damp carpet and old smoke. The TV offered noise, not relief. Mark stared at the ceiling and tried to name what he felt. Not regret, not yet. Something shapeless that sat on his chest and pressed. Jade counted their money twice and did the math a 3rd time. She pawned a bracelet she'd called gold. The clerk scratched it and offered less. She took it. She messaged a cousin who had once promised a couch anytime. The cousin wrote back, "Not with him." "You can alone." Jade showed Mark the screen. He looked away. She tried 3 cafes. The managers nodded until they asked for references. The clip had gotten there first. She posted a picture of a latte with a caption that said, "Focusing on myself," and waited for a feeling that didn't come. By Monday, she said, "I'm not built for rooms like this," and put her clothes into a bag that still smelled like their kitchen. "I'll come back when you're working." She didn't. The cousin sent an address across town. Jade left at noon, the bag thumping the stair at every step. The district attorney's office moved like a machine that has been oiled well by other people's pain. A letter arrived at the motel in Mark's name, arraignment date, case number, 2 counts under elder abuse statutes, and a violation warning in thick black letters. He folded it once, twice, as if that could change its weight. It didn't. He showed up in the same brown suit he'd worn to the first hearing. The clerk took his name and pointed to a bench. The judge read the charges, said a stay-away reminder like a nail tapped again for emphasis, and told him to check in weekly with pretrial services. The public defender said the words defendants hear, cooperate. Don't speak to her. Don't test the order. Any slip and you sit. At the corner store, Tyler rang up a bottle of water without a greeting and turned to the next customer as if Mark were already gone. On the sidewalk, Mrs. Thompson watered her roses and let the hose run a little longer than necessary, eyes on the petals, not the man who had once shouted past her window. People didn't point. They arranged their faces into something quiet and kept doing what they were doing. That is its own kind of verdict. Mark walked back to the motel with the letter in his pocket, and the sense that the block had lengthened. Consequence travels. It doesn't ask for a ride. It arrives with the speed of 10 seconds of audio and the accuracy of a stamped seal. A viral clip can close 1,000 doors. Morning came with a different kind of quiet. Soft, not scared. Evelyn opened the front door, checked the street through the new chain, and breathed in. The air felt wider. She set water for tea and let the kettle warm slow, not rushing it. On the wall by the door, the temporary order sat at eye level, edges taped neat. It wasn't just paper. It was space. Mr. Becker came over with a small box and a screwdriver. "Doorbell camera," he said. "Battery, no wiring." They mounted it together. He showed her the app, how to see who rang, how to save a clip. She practiced twice and smiled when her own face appeared on the screen. Ross stopped by after lunch to add a peephole at a height that worked for her. "Options," he said, tapping the wood once. "Options help." Amelia took Evelyn to the bank. They changed the mailing address, the phone number, the PIN. "Your pension, your control," Amelia said, and slid a new card across the desk. Evelyn signed the forms with a steady hand, the square letters that had filled a green notebook now spelling her name on clean lines. Back home, she washed the old sheets and hung them in the yard. While they dried, she opened a package of new ones, pale blue, cool to the touch, and made the bed like a small ceremony. She replaced the thin curtains with cotton that let in light. She scrubbed the stove with patience, not as punishment but as care. She repaired the loose tile by the back step with a dab of adhesive and a firm press. The sound it made when it seated, solid, done, made her nod. Neighbors began coming by on purpose. Mrs. Thompson brought cuttings, basil, rosemary, a marigold in a paper cup, and stayed for 10 minutes that turned into 30. Tyler carried a bag of potting soil from the corner store and left it by the geraniums with a shy grin. "On the house," he said, "for your garden." They didn't ask questions or tell stories. They sat and sipped and let the new quiet learn their names. In the late afternoon, a small brown dog trotted in from under the gate gap and curled by the peach tree. No collar, just a blue ribbon someone had tied light around its neck. Evelyn set out a bowl of water and a scrap of chicken. The dog ate, drank, then fell asleep with its chin on its paws. When it woke, it wagged once and wandered off, free to come and go. That felt right. She walked the room slowly, bedroom, hall, kitchen, yard, as if measuring them again. She noticed the good things first, the way the light pooled on the table at 4, the way the radio sounded better turned low, the way the floor no longer announced every step like a show. She let herself notice what needed fixing too, but not with dread. She made a list on a clean card: tighten cabinet hinge, replace burned bulb, oil door. She underlined none of it. Nothing screamed. At night she slept and woke once, then slept again. No sounds dragged her out of bed. The clock ticked like a friend. In the morning she made eggs because she wanted eggs, toasted bread because she liked the smell. She poured one cup that was hers, carried it to the back step, and watched steam lift in the cool air. On the other side of the wall, Becker's radio played a waltz, soft as a memory you can keep. She kept the phone charged. She kept the order close. She kept her routine simple and kind. Safety did not feel like armor. It felt like room to do small, ordinary things well. When the kettle reached its bright edge and began to sing, Evelyn smiled without anyone seeing. Freedom sounds like that. Building gentle, then clear. Freedom sounds like a kettle just before it sings. They found the collar by accident. Evelyn was on her knees in the kitchen, wiping dust from the baseboard, when the mop caught a loose board under the stove. The corner lifted a finger's width. She pressed again and felt it give. With a butter knife and a steady hand, she eased the board up. There it was. Brown leather, cracked, a dull buckle, pitted with rust. The shape of something that had done harm and then hid. She didn't touch it at first. She sat back on her heels and let her breath come even. Then she stood, took a dish towel from the drawer, and lifted the collar into the light. It was lighter than she remembered. It still carried the faint smell of old rain. She set it on the table and called Mr. Becker. "I found it," she said. He didn't ask what. "I'm coming," he said. Ross arrived 5 minutes later. Clean shirt, notebook in his pocket out of habit. Mrs. Thompson came with a small vase of marigolds and a look that asked permission. Tyler brought a paper bag with 2 donuts and a shy grin. "For later," he said. Amelia texted that she was on her way with a frame. They gathered in the yard under the peach tree. The late afternoon was warm. The geraniums were full and red. The small brown dog trotted in, circled twice, and settled by the step with its chin on its paws. No collar, just the blue ribbon, loose and neat. Evelyn held the towel-wrapped collar in both hands. "This took my breath," she said simply. "It doesn't get to keep it. No speeches, no anger." She lifted the lid of the metal bin by the gate. For a second, she looked at the leather as if to make sure she had the right thing. She did. She opened her hands. The collar fell. It hit the empty bin with a small, clean sound. They didn't cheer. They didn't need to. Mr. Becker nodded once. "Good work. Well done." Ross let out a breath he might not have noticed he was holding. Mrs. Thompson set the marigolds on the table. Tyler wiped his eyes with the back of his wrist and looked away. Amelia arrived with a simple frame and a roll of good tape. Inside the house, she centered the protective order on the living room wall, level with the door. "For visitors and for officers," she said, pressing the corners flat. "And for you on days you want to see what is true." They stood together and looked at the page. Case number, judge's name, dates, the words, "No contact" in clear type. It wasn't decoration. It was a fact on paper. "2 other grandmothers came in this week because of your case," Amelia said quietly. "They brought notebooks, too." Evelyn touched the frame lightly with her fingers. "Good," she said. "Let them keep their breath." Back outside, they cut slices of the small cake Mrs. Thompson had brought. Tyler poured iced tea into mismatched glasses. Conversation drifted to ordinary things. A leaky faucet, a new bus route, the heat next week. It felt right to speak of the simple world again. Safety let small talk come back. When it was time to go, they didn't say big words. Mr. Becker promised to oil the back gate tomorrow. Ross said he'd swing by with a new smoke detector. Amelia tucked her card back under the magnet by the stove and pointed once at the framed order, like a reminder and a blessing. Evening slid over the yard. The dog woke, wagged once, and wandered to the bowl for a drink. Evelyn picked up the empty plates and set them in the sink. She washed them without rush, dried them, and stacked them neat. The kitchen light made a warm square on the floor. Before bed, she walked the rooms: bedroom, hall, living room, kitchen, yard. She checked the chain at the door and the camera battery on the bell. She glanced at the frame and felt, not triumph, but peace. She opened the back door and listened. No raised voices. No footsteps she had to measure. Just a distant radio, a plane high up, the soft rub of leaves. She sat on the step with a cup of tea and watched steam lift into the cooler air. The peach tree held the last light in its leaves. The geraniums were dark now, their red gone to deep gray. The blue ribbon on the dog caught a little glow and then let it go. She thought about what had started all this: the chair, the buckle, the sentence meant to make her small. She thought about the notebook, the 30 seconds, the steady hands at the clinic, the stamp, the seal, the door chain, the keys, the way a house learns to breathe again. None of it was magic. All of it was enough. Some chains are leather. Some are habits. Some are fear. None are forever. She finished her tea, rinsed the cup, and turned out the light. The bin by the gate kept its quiet. The house kept its shape. Evelyn kept her breath. Some chains aren't metal, but they still break.